Hello everyone. Today I'm going to share with you another project I tried with ChatGPT, and the main purpose of this project is to try to let GPT to help me to build the different stock evaluation models and to check the trend of the stock price and the intrinsic value. Before going to the details, I want to first of all summarize what you can learn on or get the information from what I will going to say. First of all, is that the GPT model has its limitations. I mean, there mainly are two parts. The first part is that if my prompt is not well designed, the result may not reach my target. Second part is that its interpretation of the code is not perfect. So you need to constantly check, debug manually and with its help. So just go back and forth to help you get better coding results. And the second point is that the data preparation and the API are very important. So you need to understand in very detail what the data you are going to analyze. And you need to check the data frame and to understand. And to get some real-time data, you need to use API or some Python libraries which has the real-time data retrieval mechanism. Then I think the domain knowledge is very important because if you had some prior understanding of how to evaluate the stock price, it can be handy because you can check with the GPT results and to improve its performance. Yeah, later I'm going to show you I actually use three versions. I use GPT 3.5 to do attempt number 1, 3.5 to do attempt number 2, then I change to GPT 4. So based on this journey, you are going to see that the results are not 100% capable to be applied to real scenario, but you can get some of the information from it because I tried the best to not intervene the outputs of the GPT, and also I try my best to adapt or to adopt the result from GPT without manually changing many things. So eventually, I will get some basic framework of this code. So in the future, I can modify it. The last part, as I said, debugging. Debugging is quite important because when the code cannot run, the only option, I mean, at least for me, is to debug and to find the problem and resolve it. So let's go on to the code part. Today I'm not going to show you the GPT interface because I think the code part is more than enough. So basically, to get this conceptual framework or to get the key concepts of the intrinsic value of the stock price, ask GPT to list all the possible models to evaluate. Of course, it gave me the answer that I think is quite okay. Then I choose a stock, is Apple stock as the stock I want to analyze to calculate the different intrinsic value. Okay, so it actually also gives me some of the descriptions, and I think it's quite okay. Okay, now let's go to the code part. So basically, the first code part, GPT is not going to go very deep in every line of the code. First of all, it uses some hypothetical static value. I think it's very easy to generate such content than a more complex calculation. So its logic is more or less like this. If the code is about some model calculation, it will give detailed model calculation formula, but some of the parameters, like you can see here, like discount rate, is always a very important parameter to evaluate the stock. It actually gives you a hypothetical number, 10%. Okay, but whether you are from finance major or not, you will understand that the discount rate, you have many different ways to derive to calculate. You can always find multiple reference sources, but it's a very complicated process. So the GPT actually ignores that part, give you some of the static number, let you try, and give you the result. Okay, so actually after the first attempt, you can see that, yeah, we can see some value, but the values have very drastic difference between each other. So if you had some financial modeling experience before, you will notice that usually, even after manual calculation, the different model may yield different value, but the difference is not so drastic, not so high. I keep on improve this code. So okay, I say okay, you give some assumptions, right? So now I want to print to see the different matrix you use. Okay, so this code is very easy. It does not involve many computes, I think. So GPT just give me the code to print both the current price and then the matrix, and yeah, I can see different data here. Okay, so next step, I want to see a dynamic chart. Like my previous attempt, I think Plotly, this library, can actually give me the dynamic chart option to see the trend of the data and also to make some marking on it. For example, now I want to see the intrinsic value being plotted. Okay, so actually GPT can also give me this result. I think it's very intuitive and useful. Yeah, let alone there are still some problems about generating the intrinsic value. The result that now, I think the code structure is okay. So without going to more details to get an accurate discount rate to calculate the more accurate intrinsic value, now I focus on improving the coding part. So I try to expand it to other stock. So when expanding to other stocks, of course, now you need the list of the stock ticker, like here, the stock you want to choose, right? The more you add to this coding part, the more time you need to let the system to calculate the result, of course. And of course, at this stage, we can see the calculation for different stock the intrinsic value. Yeah, I think it's the model, the code works well. Okay, but again, remember, these are all calculated based on hypothetical value. They need to be changed either manually, or if you have some more automatic way to calculate, you should implement it. At this moment, we focus on only to display the value and also the code structure. Okay, now I want to update it to dynamic value. As you can see, this part, first of all, I ask GPT to actually produce the similar result as previously. I see the Apple price with intrinsic value and also historical price. However, if you ask the GPT again, usually it will give you a simple result first. This one only contains the historical results, historical price. Yeah, but it's okay because it's dynamic. For example, if you choose this part, it will zoom in. And you can also see when you zoom in one graph, every graph will be zoomed. Okay. It is very nice to see the different trend like this, if you find it useful. Limitation is that the zooming option will simultaneously change every graph representation. So let's go to the next part. So GPT actually gave me the 0.9 estimation of the intrinsic value. Yeah, so I would suggest or to you to look closely of the result of the GPT generation, because each time it will give you sometimes give you some surprise, like this one. To calculate a simplified intrinsic value using 90% percentage to calculate is the main price of the reference period, okay, and that takes a discount. Okay, there is no economic meaning about it because nobody uses this to calculate the intrinsic value. But as for the purpose of showing the result I want, yes, I get the result. So based on this intrinsic value calculation logic, I get the intrinsic value price and also mark it in the graph. And the trend of the historical price is also here. The problem here is that the intrinsic value calculated from the initial period, initial range of the time. So if you change the range to C, the stop price, for example, like this, when you zoom in, the intrinsic value does not change. The intrinsic value is always the same. Okay, I think from a structural point of view, this graph is okay. Yeah. So even if I ask the GPT to get a better result, as you can see here, there is no much improvement. Yeah. For example, like intrinsic value and also the historical trend is more or less like the previous result, right? So GPT, this attempt at this moment, I realized that it cannot improve further. Okay, and still, you can see that there are some many limitations, like the detailed calculation, how it defines discount rate, how it calculates the data. For example, like the intrinsic value from the discount cash flow. Okay, the future cash flow. Let's see, the future cash flow is earning per share times 1 plus earning growth rate. I think it's wrong. Yeah, you need, if you are going to discount cash flow, you need the cash flow data. Okay, yeah. So at this moment, code block number 1, we can get this result. Okay, I think from a pure coding point of view, it can be a base to improve. Then let's jump to part 2. In the part 2, I tell the GPT that its calculation have some problem. Okay, especially about the discount rate and so on. So I said, okay, please incorporate like the WACC, weighted average cost of capital, and the different metrics to calculate discount rate. Okay, it understands now, like the cost of equity. We follow this calculation method, but still, for the risk-free rate, it does not get to the government bond yield or other risk-free rates. In general, we can see that the key components are all listed here, and yeah, it actually calculates the cost of equity, cost of debt, and then calculate the WACC, weighted average cost of capital. Although the data is not perfect, as said before, let's see how the GPT give us further answers in later stages. Okay, so yeah, all the calculations, the definitions and calculations are done with its own logic, and I think in general it's right, although some of the values are hypothetical. Okay, then in this main code block, actually, if you ask the question repetitively, it sometimes will put all the previous record in together. So you can see in this code block, it actually calculated all the parameters that you need to do the intrinsic value calculation. And after everything is done here, we can see all the values. Okay, so let's see the value. It's very interesting now because when you see if the value is negative, actually it's not intuitively it's not correct, because if it is negative, there are some very different implications. Okay, you can see the value is below the current market value, so it is overpriced in the market. Okay, but if it is negative, this is a rare case. Okay, so at this point, I finished the GPT 3.5 attempts. So I think at this moment, the key takeaway is that the basic conceptual framework concepts, GPT get it right, but the accuracy of the data, the validation of the calculation results, we need to do it manually. We need to adjust manually. Otherwise, the results cannot be used for actual user case. So let's try the GPT-4 model. Yeah, I try to upload the previous code block and ask it to actually improve. Actually, it gave some of the suggestions to improve the model. In generally, dynamic financial data fetching, better error handling, adjustable growth rates, inclusion of debt and equity values, validation checks, improve the visualization. Okay, I think the most important part is there are two parts I think most important. One is to dynamically get the data, okay, get a valid API or get the financial data more accurately. And about the validation checks, I think it's also very important because if you have a third-party valuation report of the stock, it's better to double check with the third party, or you can do some common sense check based on the calculation. So one of the check is that we can calculate all these values, but if it is too high or too low than the current value, we need to investigate the reason behind which financial matrix, which financial data is not as normal level, we say. Okay, so let's see. Basically, it did the same thing as GPT 3.0. However, it actually did some small changes, like the fetch financial data with ticker. It is it was not saw before. This is actually a placeholder function to simulate financial data fetching. So basically, it does not work as a very sophisticated function. It is just a placeholder. Okay, so the rest are more or less the same. Okay, and let's see. Okay, when we get error, we ask the GPT to improve. Okay, so here we can get some results as a comparison, and the plot is similar to the previous example from 3.5. I don't see many improvements. Then here, GPT asked me to install this library to get additional results. I think it's called the Pandas Data Reader. Okay. So, okay, we get some error, and I ask GPT to improve, and then we do it again. Okay, so basically there are some like total cash from operating activities. This variable was not present, so GPT tell me to check the dataset, and check if some of the attributes exist. Okay, then it gave me the feedback of these financial metrics. I actually did it one time to get the financial account names from the same route, and I saw many of them. So there are many ways to check the data frame. I do encourage you to check it before asking GPT, because you see now when I ask GPT, some of the fields is not present, then it asks me to check, and you see key error, okay, is which means that this variable is still not in the data frame, and it failed to retrieve Apple's financial data. So there are some problems. Okay, so I tried again, and okay, in this step, actually, for example, we get some of the free like the free cash flow, the beta, and the current price. Okay, these can be fetched, but this is just a partial checking. Okay, then I will try it again to get both, to actually want to redo the mapping, redo the graph of the historical price trend, and also the intrinsic value. But this code does not work because in this code block, in this code file, I did not specify the apple before. So we redo it again. GPT actually rerun all the code, then return this kind of price. And of course, it's very interesting because I asked to construct a trend graph, but a trend chart, but it gave me some of the trend signal is up or down. Yeah, it's quite interesting in point of view how LLM is understanding my request. So I do it again. It gave me it gave me the value, and also yeah, some of the value does not work. Okay, so here I ask GPT to improve again. So actually now it gave me the historical value and set period to 3 months, and implement different valuation matrix. Okay, methods to get the value, and eventually, okay, here we go. We have this graph. Of course, I think it's not very useful, but this general framework is useful with some modification. It can be used to display. But there are two issues. First of all, now all the intrinsic value are way below the historical price. This is wrong. This is just wrong. Then display of different values should be in different color. Otherwise, you cannot easily distinguish. Okay, so today I'm going to finish here. I wish this experience sharing can be useful for you. So basically, the key takeaway is that we need to improve our prompt and to use a stepwise strategy to get a more accurate response. Because when as you see in both models, when I actually focus on one question, sometimes it can provide me all the code, redoing all the code altogether, but the meaningful improvements are very limited. So I would suggest a more detailed query to GPT model. Then I think we need to implement our domain knowledge more carefully, and also need to check the data sets, and also the detailed calculation and so on. We need to actually define it better, because GPT cannot help us to get a very complex results, like the detailed calculation of the discount rate, because there are so many components. I think GPT sometimes is trying to avoid utilizing too much compute to a simple task, so it may simplify the answer. Last point, I think whenever you generate this code, it's not 100% useless. Save the code block, improve, and also do very useful markup to mark the parts that you change and describe the logic. Is very useful. So you can improve in the next chance when you use such code and to get better results. Okay, thank you, and see you next time. Bye bye.